Wonderful. Thank you. Today's topic that I want to share with you is about from cave to freedom. And you will just see a picture on the screen about hamster wheel. Sometimes our life looks like that. You know, we are walking, we are running our life, and it looks like we are going nowhere. And same things are happening again and again, and you're not progressing, but you're stuck in one place. And that reminds me of a story from the Bible, and that's why I titled From Cave to Freedom. It reminds me a story from the Bible from 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1 to 2. This is the story of David. Before he became king, he was running away from Saul, his father-in-law, who wanted to kill him. So he was running from place to place. Then he found a cave where he thought that's the safe place to live in. And then the Bible says in 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1 to 2, David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. Now this is the place where he was hiding, and this is where David, he writes this psalm. And I'll just read few verses from it. And he begins with this in Psalm 142. This is the psalm that he wrote from this cave. He says, I cry out to the Lord with my voice. With my voice to the Lord I make my supplication. I pour out my complaint before him. I declare before him my trouble. That's a good place to start. You know, if you are troubled, if you are distressed, if you are in trouble in your life, make your supplications known unto God, call unto him. And then he says, when my spirit was overwhelmed within me, then you knew my path in the way which I walk. They have secretly set a snare for me. So he's talking about Saul. So he says, when my spirit was overwhelmed within me. Sometimes do you feel in your life that you come to a place where you feel overwhelmed? You feel like you have hit the wall. You can't go further. Nothing is going to change. It looks like the future of your life looks a bit cloudy. And this is what David felt like. And then he goes on to say, look on my right hand and see, for there is no one who acknowledges me. So here he is even feeling rejection. And he says, the refuge has failed me. No one cares for my soul. Have you been in that place where you feel like that no one cares about you? I said this in the past, you may have maybe 5,000 friends on Facebook, maybe 2,000 people following you on Instagram, but still you can be on that lonely place. And this is where David, he felt like he had many friends, many people knew about him, but he was having that feeling that no one cares about him. And life can change suddenly, like David did, where a tragedy strikes, a failure haunts you, abuse and rejection can cut deep into your life. Now, talking about the cave, we all can have cave of our life. And how we end up in that cave. Cave are places we run to when life wounds us. It can be through tragedy, where you experience a sudden loss that breaks us, and tragedy can push us into hiding. When tragedy strikes, it often feels like the light of life suddenly goes out. It might be where you have the loss of a loved one. Maybe you had a diagnosis that changed everything. Maybe you had a financial collapse, or a dream that you had, it didn't work out as you thought. And we find a good example in the Bible talking about the cave is Lot. Lot, he thought he will go to Sodom and Gomorrah and he will live rest of his life in that place, enjoy his life, his future will be good, he will have family over there, he had a plan, he had a dream, and then it doesn't work out as he thought. It turns out to be a big mess. And when God's judgment come on Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his family, they run as commanded by the Lord, by the angel of the Lord. And then in that process, Lot loses his wife. And he ends up with his two daughters. And the Bible says, it says in Genesis chapter 19, verse 30, Lot and his two daughters left Zoar and settled in mountains. He was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his two daughters lived in a cave. Imagine, this is the man who wanted to live in a city. He wanted to live among the people. Now he comes to that place where he doesn't want to live with people. And he ends up living in a cave. For him, the cave felt safer than facing the world. Fear and loss drove him into the cave. But staying there only brought more tragedy to his life. Tragedy can make us withdraw, avoiding people, avoiding responsibilities, even avoiding God. Sometimes we can be in a place of cave where you have gone through trauma, memories in your life that keeps you bound. Maybe you had an accident that still plays in your mind. I know some people who had some accident in the past, and it triggers whenever they see any accident on the road. Maybe some of you had words spoken in anger that echoes years later. Something someone has said negative about you. And when those words come back to you, it just triggers your anger and rejection. Maybe some people have gone through shock of betrayal and abandonment. Trauma is something that builds a cave inside us. You may function outwardly, but inwardly you hide and afraid to let anyone in, like Lot did. You know, we find again another example in the Bible about Elijah. Mighty man of God, did great things, miracles and everything else. He wins this battle against Jezebel, bringing the fire from heaven. And then Jezebel threatens him to kill him. And we find in the Bible, the next thing he does is he runs into a cave. And he asks God, this man of faith asked God, Lord, I had enough. I want to die. I want to die. I had enough. The trauma of fear drove him to say that. Sometimes it can be abuse, the pain others have caused to you. Whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, it breaks your trust. It whispers you're not safe out there, and it brings you into the place of cave. Like David, who was chased by Saul's jealous rage, abuse from someone who should have loved and protected him, forced him into the cave. Abuse tells you the world is dangerous, so you shrink back into that dark place. The third one is failures and rejections. Failures and rejections can make us retreat. Failures can feel like a personal death, a broken relationship, a failed exam, a dream or ambition that didn't work out for you. And rejection adds to it. When others turn their backs, the pain can feel unbearable. Think about Peter in the Bible. He felt he had failed because he denied Jesus 3 times. Of course, he didn't hide in a literal cave, but he went back to fishing, back to the shadows, away from his calling. Failure drove him into hiding until Jesus restored his life. And that's what Jesus does. When you call unto him, when you come to him, he restores your life. There are dangers of staying in cave. David was not alone. He had 400 men who were in distress, in debt, and discontented. He stayed too long in that place. And when you stay too long in that place of cave of your life with all that I mentioned, you can be in a place where you even lose your identity. It is said, a wounded animal hides in the dark to heal. But if it never comes out, it starves. Many of us stay hidden in our pain too long. You need to bring it before God for him to heal it. Corrie ten Boom, she says, there is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. She is the woman during Second World War, put in prison, sometimes in solitary confinement. And she faced a lot of challenges over there. And she says, there is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. So if you want to come out of that cave, you need to cry out honestly before God as David did. He says, I pour out my complaint before you. Because he didn't know whom to share his complaint. He didn't know whom to share his pain. He says, I brought my complaint before you. Then he declares and he says, you are my portion. You come to that place where you acknowledge God is your portion. When you work with God, God will work out best for you. Third, he's asking for deliverance. He says in Psalm 142, set me free from my prison. Set me free from my prison. Maybe you're in that prison of your pain, rejection you have gone through in life, and only Jesus can set you free. You know, in closing, I want to share with you a story of this man of God called Bill Wilson. Some of you may have heard about him. A great man of God from US. I met him in Amsterdam some years back and had a very good time. And his story is very powerful. When Bill was just a little boy, about 12 years old, his mother took him by the hand, walked him to a busy street corner in Florida, and told him to wait there. He waited and waited, but she never came back. His mother abandoned him on that corner. Bill sat there for 3 days. No one stopped to say what's happened to him or what's wrong with him. Hundreds of people passed him by. Not a single person asked, are you okay? He was hungry, dirty, and utterly alone. He later said that those 3 days felt like an eternity. For him, it was a dark cave of rejection and hopelessness. But on the third day, a man named Dave Rudnitz, a local mechanic and a Christian, noticed this little boy, and he felt something in his heart to stop and talk to him. And he asked him, are you all right? And Bill said to him, my mom is gone. She's not coming back. Dave took Bill into his own family, cared for him, and more importantly, he introduced him to Jesus. He took him to a Christian camp. Immediately after, he took him home. And over there, a lot of children even rejected him because he was ugly, he was smelly. And then when the altar call was given by the preacher, he went forward and he said this, my mother rejected me, Christians rejected me, but Jesus have accepted me. And he followed Jesus from there on. Now, this act of compassion by Dave, pulled Bill out of his cave of abandonment. Bill could have stayed trapped in that rejection all his life. He could have grown bitter, angry, resentful. But instead, he let God heal his heart and give him purpose. Today, Bill Wilson leads Metro World Child in New York City. He completed his PhD in theology. And the ministry that he leads, it is one of the largest Sunday school ministries in the world. Every week, he sends hundreds of buses into the roughest neighborhoods in New York, picking up children, many of them abandoned, abused, and forgotten, because Bill knows what it feels to be left behind. And here's what he often says. He says, the reason I go after those kids is because I remember sitting on that street corner. I know what it's like to feel that no one cares, as David did in his cave. The question today is, as the music is played, the question to you today is this. Maybe you have gone through some kind of rejection. Maybe you have gone through some kind of failures. Maybe you have gone through some kind of trauma in your life that keeps coming back again and again and pulls you back and keeps you in that cave. Jesus is stretching his hand and he's saying this to you. Come unto me, all who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come unto me, and I will set you free. As he restored Peter, where he had lost his purpose because he felt he has failed in life, Jesus restored him. A God is a God in work of restoration. And my question to you this morning is, will you allow him? Will you allow him? And say like David, Lord, I bring my pain to you, my complaints to you. You are my portion. Set me free from my prison. As we are going to worship God with this last song, I want you to ponder on what I shared and just talk to him. If anyone, you need prayer, feel free to come in front. We'll be happy to pray for you, or else after